Good afternoon, good evening, and good night. This is Budah explaining the world, part 2. Today I'm going to be talking about drugs, and I'm going to be talking about America. And then, if I have time, I'll talk about cancer, electric transport, and something called Ship Creek.
We can see, is there anybody out there with hope?
Drugs, first of all. Mankind has been taking drugs and having a good out-of-head experience since he was able to come down from the trees and walk on two legs. But today we have a different attitude to drugs. It's seen as a bad thing. But the thing is, if it's a natural drug like peyote from cactus, or ayahuasca, or cannabis, it grows, and perhaps it was put there by somebody who might have made the planet. It's been very useful to give people headspace to think about things in a different way, because when you're high from whatever, and it doesn't need to be from drugs, you can just be feeling high, you can see things a bit more clearly. You can see things from a different angle, and I think it's been very helpful. So why is it that we now ban these drugs that are natural and criminalise and lock people up? So some of our greatest art, our greatest music has come influenced by drugs. In America, if you have a person in prison, that's worth $50,000, which is quite a bit of money. So locking people up for smoking a bit of weed makes very good economic sense. And there have been cases when judges and sheriffs and others and wardens have conspired to lock up as many black people as possible, and then you can get them to work for free. Slavery is allowed in the American Constitution if a person's in jail. So the prison industrial complex is a big money-making machine, and it's something we should be really aware of, because when you've got lots and lots of people locked up and it makes lots of money for corporations and wardens and all the people who are involved in it, I think it's something you should really, really look at very carefully. Ayahuasca is something I've never tried, but I'd love to try it, because I've heard that people have some really amazing experiences and talk about talking directly to Mother Ayahuasca. And for many people, it's been a really life-changing experience. So if anyone knows of any ayahuasca parties going on, please let me know. Marijuana. Now, lots of people smoke marijuana. Put my hand up there, that's me. But does it cause terrible, terrible dangers to society? Does it rob us of our people? I don't think so. Some young people get absolutely caned on skunk, mostly young men, and they can have some really bad effects. But if they had access to much milder cannabis strains, and there are lots of different ones, maybe they would have a different experience and they wouldn't have psychosis. Now, my drug of choice, that's a strange way of putting it. Don't you just mean drug? Well, drug of choice. For some people, it's a fine cognac, a beautiful red wine, a German or Belgian beers, champagne, cigars, cigarettes, alcohol. I've already done those. It's your drug of choice. My drug of choice is illegal. Ooh, marijuana grows naturally. It's a plant. People have been getting high since the beginning of time. When we dropped out of the trees, and probably while we were still in the trees actually, we would have found ways to get high. Peyote, cactus, that'll get you high. Magic mushrooms will get you high. Cannabis will get you high. Lots of things will get you high. Some things are really, really dangerous, though. Some really dangerous drugs I want to talk about. But you can get them by prescription. You go to a shop and they'll give you really hard drugs. My God. And if you want to manufacture really hard drugs, like fentanyl and OxyContin, and lots of others, they're the prescription drugs, and they kill vast numbers of people. Heroin, well, that's easy to solve. Street heroin is about 5-6% heroin, and the rest of it's made up with bleach, rat powder, whatever you want. And then you put that into your veins, and that's going to fuck you up. You just put that into your body, it's going to do terrible things. And street heroin kills. If you get a bit which is a bit more pure, and you shoot up in a different place than you're used to, you'll overdose. And you might get rescued, but who cares? Society doesn't seem to. So, drugs that are really addictive, really dangerous, and kill proven hundreds of thousands every year, they're legal. Tobacco, it's legal. Alcohol, drink as much as you like. That's fine. It's a legal drug. Something that you smoke out in your garage, that you've grown yourself. You're not selling anything, you're just smoking it. You and your friends, out in the garage. What harm can that possibly do? If you go out and get tanked up on alcohol, but in a city centre, you'll have fights. Alcohol breeds fights. I've been to a festival in Reading, and lots of people there were on ecstasy. And people, take billions of tablets, and the ones that die, well, everyone's going to die. I mean, you can get kicked to death by a donkey, but so everyone dies. It's one part of life. But the amount that die per pill, nothing. It's tiny. And if it wasn't down to organised crime that brought them in, people could take it safely and have a lovely time and not be completely mashed. But we had a great party. People walked around all the time, holding hands. Nobody got upset. It was just somewhere to meet people. The shyest people would talk to anybody. It was fantastic. That's why it's such an addictive drug. How many does it kill? Tiny numbers. Heroin, small numbers. And it's because it's dirty. If you're rich, by the way, getting back to heroin, you can buy really, really pure stuff. Like the Victorian gentleman that used to go down to the Chinese Quarter, and a nice Oriental lady would sit you down in a cot and give you just the right amount, safely and cleanly, well, as far as they knew, and you'd be away with the fairies.
Yeah, opium.
Opium dens. By the way, who was it that the Opium Wars, Britain and China, was it the Brits fighting against the dirty Chinese bringing in the heroin, or was it the Chinese defending themselves from being attacked by the British who wanted to force heroin on them? Okay, a slightly different reading of history. I wonder how many kids are taught that in school, getting back to drugs in a way. It's my business if I want to smoke. If I don't harm anybody, and I don't, if I just smoked, I'll get a taxi if I need to get somewhere, or I won't go out. People drink and drive all the time. And this brings me on to electric cars, but I'll do that differently. So, it's your drug of choice. Some are very dangerous drugs, as I've gone through, and some are very mild. Heroin. How many people do you know, Craig, roughly, just in the Great Britain, how many people die every year from overdoses of cannabis? None. No. If you overdose, you smoke more than you wanted or ate more, whatever, you go to sleep. You have a nice little sleep. People die from vomiting and choking on their vomit from alcohol poisoning. Alcohol causes untold damage to families. It's a terrible thing.
As well as obesity and...
Yeah, and cancers,
Cancers, heart
it's all there. But it's legal and indeed encouraged. So our ideas, I mean, Channel 4 did a great documentary about it, and they looked at all the different drugs, and they got experts and lay people to rate them from sort of mildest to most horrible, dangerous and whatever. And of course the ones down here, the most horrible, were things like antidepressants, paracetamol, all these different things. Tobacco, alcohol, right there is the worst killers. The ones that are illegal are the ones over here. So it's a crazy system, and it's time that it was overhauled. And I read a very interesting book by an ex-drug squad officer who said that he realised, he was extremely good at his job, but he realised that poor people were dying, that the harder the police were, and the cleverer the police were, the cleverer and nastier and the criminal gangs became. So he realised he was doing something which is ridiculous, the war on drugs. It doesn't work, it's never worked since Nixon invented it in '63, I think it was. Wars on drugs don't work. Prohibition in America didn't work.
In 1,000 from now, will the air be hard to breathe? Will the forest be a memory and the cold part of history? Do you remember how good it was?
America. It's a big subject, but it's something I'm going to try and cover in as much detail as I can. Now, I think we have a certain level of hypocrisy going on in America. America gets away with things that other nations wouldn't get away with. If I can give you an illustration. If there was a general who was an enemy general and people wanted him to be taken out, so they're able to launch a drone strike from 50,000 feet or whatever and blow up the general and several other of his cars, and so there would be drivers, cooks, cleaners, chefs, all sorts of people that travel with these top generals. So the general is there. Do we take him out? Now, if you were America, you might say, yeah, take him out, because we get rid of a general. But what if that general was a British general and somebody else, say the Iraqis, if they had such a thing, if they had drones, what if they took out a British general who was in a meeting in Oxford Street in London?
Uproar.
Uproar, yeah. 30 innocent people killed, say, But they did get the general. Would that be acceptable? No, not at all. Not even, nobody would go, that's reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
But America does it in another country, Pakistan, that they're not at war with, and they blow up the general, take him out, and 3 cheers for America. It's double standards, it's hypocrisy. Because anywhere else, it wouldn't be acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
If Iraq, without declaring war, bombed an American city, killing hundreds, thousands of people in the middle of the night, and they filmed it, we would say that's unacceptable. That's a terrible, terrible thing.
Atrocity.
An atrocity, that's what it would be. One of the greatest atrocities ever. But when it's Baghdad, and it's foreigners, Muslim foreigners at that, because it will have taken out hundreds, thousands of civilians as well as the military targets, because these smart bombs aren't that smart. They're still bombs, and they blow little children and granddads and dogs and cats, and everybody just kills them all, blows them to pieces. They still die. America uses phosphorus shells that burn with incredible intensity and roast their victims alive. Uranium-tipped shells, which cause mutations, deformed babies being born for decades, maybe even longer. Anybody else would be called a war crime. But America does it. It's okay. In fact, they get applause for it.
Everybody in my song, the people still want to be free. I'm awaiting my last breath on the cliff of destiny.
So let's look at the myths of American superiority. The American presidents, they have their own President's Day every year, and little children dress up in top hats and they talk about wonderful things and the Constitution, and aren't they marvellous? Well, I would recommend that anybody who believes this should have a look at a video by Noam Chomsky. Now, Noam Chomsky, clever bloke, very, very intellectual, brilliant mind. And he goes through a list of the American presidents all the way back to the first one and talks about what they were really like, not what history tells the American children to believe. Quite a few of them were in the Ku Klux Klan, right at the top, segregationists, really, really bad people. People who were basically criminals in suits. There have been some good American presidents, that is true, but an awful lot of them were really seriously bad people. So check out Noam Chomsky's video.
What was JFK really like?
JFK, he was very good in part, but he wasn't perfect. He did some stuff which really wasn't great. There was an interesting thing actually, Operation Mockingbird. I don't know if you've ever heard of that one. No. It was the CIA came up with a plan, all costed out, all worked out to the finest bit, where they wanted an excuse to invade Cuba and get rid of Castro. But if they'd have just gone straight in, they would have had a lot of people saying, no, that's bad news. So Operation Mockingbird, designed by the CIA and the military chiefs, suggested that they blow up some American airliners and American...
and say it was the Cubans?
Yes, yeah. They seriously did. They wanted to blow up civilian targets, bomb American cities, bomb American bases, and then blame it on Castro. And of course the American people would have said, yes, we demand revenge. They would have got the permission to go in and take him out.
Who shot him?
The American government, the CIA, and several other organisations. I don't know exactly who, but there was organised crime as well. There were lots of people involved in it. Because one of the mistakes that JFK made was in one of his speeches, he said, the CIA are too big for their britches, and I intend to smash them into 1,000 pieces. Now, that was, unfortunately for him, his death sentence. Yeah, and they assassinated him. They blamed it on a lone shooter, which is impossible. I mean, the bullet went through him several times and through somebody in the front seat and then bounced back. The magic bullet.
It's not shot from a 6-story window.
No, not at all. No. And there was a commission set up called the Warren Commission, who were supposed to look into this, and they took their time and looked at various things like the Zapruder film, and said yes, it was Lee Harvey Oswald from a 6-story window, and of course they whisked his body away. They wouldn't allow post-mortems, blah blah blah.
Okay.
And we can see that now because we've got forensics. We can look at things in far more detail.
Angles of trajectory. And stuff.
Angles, trajectory, all of those things, and it was just it was not true. He was killed, like Martin Luther King. He was assassinated, and there was, I think it was his family, did a civil suit against the American government, and they had a proper investigation, and not many people have actually seen the results of this, but actually they said yes, it was the local sheriff's department were involved, a hired shooter, and it was the American government what did it.
Mm-hmm.
So we can see these things because they're in the past, and you get freedom of information and you get certain documents released. So what the American authorities do, the government behind the government, if there's somebody that they really don't like, that they can't control, then they shoot them.
Or worse.
Well, is there much worse than shooting them? But when you say worse...
Yeah, we'll tarnish the memory of them, tarnish their name for...
Oh, yeah, yes, absolutely, yes. Yeah, they do that. They can destroy a person. So, yeah, I'm afraid the myths of American superiority and the American presidency is just a myth. And it is interesting looking at the way that the whole thing is set up. The Americans have an electoral college that sorts out the candidates and then presents them to be voted for. But if the only candidates that get through are ones who will be cooperative with the government, then it's not really a democracy. So people like Bernie Sanders, for example, would never get put through, even if they're really, really popular, because Bernie Sanders would actually do something for ordinary people, and the powers that be wouldn't allow that. So they won't let him through. They'll use electoral college, and you get somebody like the very, very criminal Hillary Clinton. Dreadful person, and clearly criminal, because if you've got a private server and you delete 23,000 emails off your private server, which is illegal anyway, but do these people go to prison? Do they go to jail? No. We've got an interesting thing at the moment with Jeffrey Epstein. Are you up with the Jeffrey Epstein case?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. So it's interesting. He was originally found guilty of trafficking children, and he got a 13-month sentence. 13 months, not in a high security prison, but his own private prison with guards and wardens who were under his pay, and he was allowed out every day to go to work. So nobody else.
Where did he work?
Oh, he was apparently a hedge fund manager.
I see.
Nobody's been able to find who employed, what he was actually doing, but he was seemingly able to make vast amounts of money. He was given properties by people. Yeah. So, what was he getting his money from? Trafficking in children. So he, got a tiny little sentence, from his mates, but eventually he got put in prison again, and that's where he was suicided. There's an interesting joke actually. What's the similarity between Christmas lights and Jeffrey Epstein? Neither of them were able to hang themselves, but he was killed. He was taken out because he obviously had the goods on an awful lot of very, very influential high level people in the American system. So he was killed before he could reveal any names.
Did Ghislaine not say anything?
No, Ghislaine Maxwell is also in prison now. So will she be suicided, or how will they make sure that she doesn't spill the beans? And I think she has released some documents, and the FBI have released some documents which show that Jeffrey Epstein definitely was involved in these things. And lots of people, you can look on the internet and you'll find lots of people like Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, the Bushes, and Donald Trump, and they're often pictured together. They're all pals, they're all the elite of American society. Yeah, war criminals, common criminals, drug peddling criminals, the Clintons, like that. But if you have a private island and you fill it full of young girls, and they massage their rich clients like Prince Andrew and others and Clinton, and you film it all, then you've got brilliant blackmail material.
People speak about initiations to like secret societies and stuff, don't they?
Yeah, there's a lot of that. The Skull and Bones Society is in Yale University and only open to men, and the sons of very rich men are the only ones who get into the Skull and Bones. And at one time we had George W. Bush and John Kerry, who were the candidates, and both of them had been in the Skull and Bones Society, or still were actually. And they both admitted to it, but said, well, it's a secret society, so I can't tell you anything about them. But the truth is, in these men-only, white supremacist secret societies, the oath of allegiance that you take when you become a member trumps that of the allegiance you owe to your country, to your fellow man. So you will always make decisions based on what's best for your brothers and your secret society, rather than what's best for your country and your fellow man. I want to talk about the role of executive orders. These are something like Joe Biden has used, where you have a great stack of executive orders which you can make without having to go through the normal democratic process. You're just allowed to do it. So Joe Biden had a dozen or more executive orders. A lot of it was overturning stuff that Trump said, rejoining the Paris Climate Accord, etc. If President Obama really wanted to do something about the terrible gun crimes and murders of innocent school children, he could have done it with an executive order. So him saying, I had no choice, I was not able to do it, really doesn't wash. But he could have said maximum magazine capacity could be 20 rounds rather than 60 or whatever. And he could have done that. I mean, he wanted to limit the number of rounds in a magazine, because at least when these shooters start, like the guy that dressed up as Batman, at least if it was only 20, he'd have got 20 shots off, and then he'd have had to reload, which time, people could have jumped on him.
Yes.
But if you've got 60 round magazine, then you can just carry on shooting and kill everyone around you.
It's true. What would you need that for anyway? If you were possessing a gun to protect yourself,
yeah, I mean,
you wouldn't need that many.
You wouldn't need.
If you put a cap on it, then everybody should be in the same boat. So
yeah, so it would.
Unless you're planning to wreak havoc, why would you need that many bullets in the chamber?
Exactly. Yeah.
Or in the rounds.
Yeah. So at least the school shootings, they wouldn't have been able to kill so many. It wouldn't have stopped the school shootings, but it would have made them far less damaging than they otherwise would have been. And if you're hunting a bear, you don't need 60 round magazine. So really, it was these NRA who pushed the policy, and they wouldn't let them get away with anything. So if you go through the House of Representatives and then the Senate, no way would he be able to get that through, because there are people that the NRA, they give a senator, $50,000, $500,000. There's no way they will vote for restricting magazine size, etc. But the second part of being an American president is that when you get to the end, you're allowed to pardon criminals.
I saw Trump pardoning a lot of celebrity criminals and stuff.
Yeah. Also, all these really rotten, terrible people who were the elites. He didn't pardon Snowden or Julian Assange or people like that. whistleblowers, he chose instead to pardon his criminal friends. To me, it's outright criminality. They just shouldn't be able to get away with that.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about Edward Snowden, he was one of the main whistleblowers, and he talked about the NSA, the National Security Agency, who he revealed had been spying on all of us, all the American citizens, and they'd bugged the White House, they'd bugged Angela Merkel. And then, the guy was extremely brave because he knew things were not going to go well for him.
Mm-hmm.
So he revealed it and told the world that, America was involved in war crimes. He was one of the people who revealed that footage of, American soldiers up in helicopters and C-130s killing innocent civilians, people with cameras, and obviously he's been vilified and now he's living in Russia. He'd love to come back to America, but he wouldn't get a fair trial. The guy would end up getting tortured in Guantanamo and probably killed.
Mm-hmm.
Julian Assange in WikiLeaks, he published an awful lot of stuff which showed America in its true light. But if you're a whistleblower in America, you don't do very well. Things are very bad for anybody who speaks out against the authorities, against government. So Assange and Snowden are just two people, but an awful lot more have been murdered. Now here's an interesting one. A conspiracy theory saying that the CIA have got a secret gun which will kill people and make it look like a heart attack.
Or give them cancer. I've heard of that one before.
Oh, I'm sure the cancer one, yeah.
It can hit you with some kind of ray.
Really?
And mutates the cells or something.
Yeah.
Mm.
Wouldn't put it past them.
Well,
I hadn't heard that one particularly. Yeah.
there's a conspiracy theory about Bob Marley getting killed that way.
Ah, yeah. That makes sense, because if you're saying stuff that the government, the American government and others don't like, your life expectancy is not going to be measured in, you're not going to die an old man in your 90s.
No, sir.
So, you'll disappear.
Mm.
But this heart attack gun was actually proved to be correct. I think it was in the 70s, at a Senate hearing, the CIA admitted that they have got a gun that fired frozen ice bullets, tiny little ones, which had got some shellfish poison, which would induce a heart attack and would only make a tiny little 3mm hole, and then of course the ice melts. So you can give anybody a heart attack, doesn't matter how healthy they are. And conspiracy theory, nope, it's the truth. You can see that on YouTube. In America they have a billionaire culture. So if you're one of a happy band of mostly white multi-billionaires, then you can affect the policy and legislation around lots of areas, such as the vaccines. Other billionaires who are in the military-industrial complex, which I mentioned last week, can dictate foreign policy of America. So you can get wars and destabilise nations and control governments all around the world. One of America's greatest heroes, a chap called General Wesley Clark, wrote a book called War is a Racket, and in it he detailed all of the different campaigns he'd been sent on around the world, mostly Latin America, places like that, where he was sent in to kill people and declare, make war on them for the benefit of big American companies, big American corporations that went in and then made a fortune. People like Castro and others in Venezuela, when they became in government and were voted for by the people, they set about making it much more difficult for big American companies who, like Texaco and Shell, who'd been in, made a huge amount of money from like Venezuelan oil, for example.
Do you remember how good it was? She was clean and how we played. Do you remember how good it was? How beautiful life seemed.
Now, when you suggest a change, like I'm suggesting, a lot of people will say, well, what can you do about it? You know, life is as it is. And have you got any actual suggestions, or are you just bleating on and saying, well, that's wrong and that's wrong? Have you got any answers? And the thing is, yes, I have. Here's one area. If we use the combustion engine, then we will produce pollution, and that will kill people, and it will make our hospital, our NHS pay more out, because if you've got COPD, you need a lot of resources going in. So it's very expensive. And we know that if we get rid of combustion engines, we will have very clean air. That happened in March last year, when the lockdown first came. We had cleaner air than we've had since pre-industrial times. People breathed easier. So there's not just a correlation, there's a cause. There's proof. Combustion engines will cause pollution. So, is it necessary? No. We used to only have that, so it was necessary. Although, if you look at the history of electric car, we had them back in the 1850s, so we could have done it differently. So, electric cars, they're better than the combustion engines. And yes, you use possibly polluting electricity, but if you have a fully electric, renewable electric grid, then the amount of pollution coming from manufacturing electric cars will be much, much smaller than making a combustion engine car. Then electric cars don't produce pollution from the exhaust as they're going along. Using friction brakes causes brake dust, which is PM 2.5 particles, which is very, very bad for you, as we know. You don't need friction brakes if you use an electric car, because you can turn the motor into a generator, so you can make it stop or slow down extremely rapidly, so you don't need friction brakes. Electric cars don't produce exhaust. If I could get my car into my house in the lounge, I could run it all day and all night, and it wouldn't harm me at all. Do that with a petrol engine car, and you're dead. And so is all your family. So, people kill themselves by gassing themselves to death in their garages. If you open that garage and all the smoke goes out, you think, oh, it's disappeared. But it causes huge problems. So, electric cars aren't the answer. They are part of the answer. Electric buses, electric trains, electric delivery vehicles, electric postage vans, in fact all of them, electric road sweepers,
ambulances,
electric ambulances, they're better, they are. Garbage trucks, rather than all this diesel and stuff, we can convert to a purely electric situation very, very quickly, but not if we go by what our government are proposing. They want to continue gassing us because the oil industry and the car industry pays an awful lot of money as political donations. So, though they might say they're green, they're not. They are there for industry, and they want to maintain their money coming in. So they do favours for the businesses. We could fill the city centre with electric charging, so you'd never run out. Mm-hmm. They're using that scheme now, but unfortunately, ordinary car drivers, petrol car drivers, will just pay more money. That's always hitting the ordinary person. What we need to do is to make it incredibly cheap.
Encourage it.
Encourage it, yeah. Electric taxis. you buy in large numbers and you sell them to all the taxi drivers and taxi ranks, and you put charges in the taxi ranks, and their costs would be about, well, less than half, probably a quarter. So you'd have really cheap taxis. Everyone would be really happy. Get rid of
It's crazy how they don't put money into encouraging people to use electric vehicles. For instance, when they used to give you free loft insulation, to stop you letting out so much heat, so you use less fuel.
Right.
It's crazy that they haven't already introduced, more grants towards people getting electric vehicles and stuff, so it's more affordable.
It's madness. It is. I mean, when I first got into electric vehicles, government paid $5,000 off the price of a new electric car, and you got a charging thing on your garage, with all the charging stuff in there, so it was nice and quick. Now you have to pay for the wall box, and I think they give you about £100 for it or something, and then you get 3,500, and they will that'll go down and down. They're subsidising the petrol industry all the time. But electric cars, they're saying, oh yes, green, blah, 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 blah. But they're not actually doing what they say. The Conservatives, for example, said they would have electric charging points in every petrol station up and down the land. So far, they've done about 50 or 60. If they'd have put money into it, and what they should do is sue Volkswagen for the murder of some of their citizens, because averaged over, it would have killed because they lied about their cheating. So they should make a suit against them and get compensation, and put that into like the scrappage scheme. You're taking your worst polluters, and rather than giving you another polluter, they give you an electric car. Get all the manufacturers to make conversion kits. So if you've got a perfectly good Ford Focus or Mondeo or whatever it is, you take it into a local garage, they'll give you a lone electric car. 2 weeks later you come back, your car's been converted by the manufacturer into an electric vehicle. Maintain all of the other stuff.
But the thing about combustion engine cars, they're not built the same as electric vehicles are built, are they?
No, they're not as good.
They tried it with the Golf, didn't they?
Yeah, you can do a conversion, but just as long as you make all new electric cars, so all new cars should be electric. They should ban them. Right, we'll give you 6 months, because they've all got
all that waste.
All what waste?
The waste of the combustion engines.
Scrap them. Boil. Use them, recycle them. All of the parts were made from different metals. Separate them out, break them down, and there you go.
It's an industry right there, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an industry right there. Yeah. And making if you got the original manufacturers to make a battery kit, because you wouldn't need a battery that's going to get you 500 miles like a Tesla. You could get one that will do 60 miles, 100. And for most journeys, that's all you need. The average drive to work and back is like about 25 miles. So you don't need a massive battery. And if you can charge them up every time you park, next to a lamppost, you plug it in slow charge. Every time you go to a car park, you plug it in and you come back and your car's done. Everywhere, up and down the roads. So you never run out, every petrol station. So range anxiety? No, not really. I ran out of petrol when I used to drive petrol and diesel cars many times. I've run out of electricity once. And I was picked up by this, back of a loader, what's it? And he said, oh no, we get about 20,000 a week, petrol cars. And more that put, petrol in diesel and diesel in, and it's like they pretend that their cars are perfect and are, wonderful. You know, every electric car fight, oh my God, look at this, they're terrible. But petrol cars ignite. You know, that one where they burnt about 400 cars. That was the Vauxhall Zafira. You know,
and they were testing the electric cars for how long, and one of them, or one or two.
Yeah, a couple of them. But you know, they're getting better and better. You know, like the Tesla Model S, Model 3, and the Model Y and X. They're the safest cars, bar none. Right at the top, you know, for crash ratings and rollovers and all that stuff. And then the number of miles they drive, because they've got a lane keep assistance, and this is behind you, and they can see.
Would you buy a Tesla?
Sorry?
Would you buy a Tesla?
Oh yeah. Well, it's brilliant.
Wouldn't you rather buy a Jaguar?
They're not very efficient.
I think Jaguar are going to rival Tesla, like over here.
Yeah.
For electric vehicles, or they should.
Well, they've, you know, their first go was okay, you know, and they'll get better. So yeah, I hope so.
The reason I say that is because you're talking about the wealthy getting wealthier.
Yeah.
And Elon Musk is wealthy enough.
Oh, he is, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I just don't think you should have billionaires and multi-billionaires. Definitely not, because a billion is so much money. You know, and there's only you know, you can buy.
You can't even fathom that many zeros.
No, it's you know, somebody explained it. 1 million seconds is 33 days. You think, oh wow, that's a lot of seconds, 33 days. But 1 billion is, what was it? 34 years. So that's like a, you know, so if you win £1 million, you think, I'm a millionaire. But compared to a billionaire, you're in dire poverty. Because a billion, you know, you can buy super yachts, several super yachts. You're going to villas all over the world, helicopter things. You know, you could just go around chucking big wads of tenors out for the rest of your life, and you never get rid of it.
Yeah.
So it's a ridiculous amount of money. So if you've got like 140 billion, it's ridiculous. So even if you give away 70 billion and you go, oh, he's a philanthropist, he's wonderful, fantastic, it's still nothing. It won't change your life. You know, if we go to a restaurant, you know, something, when I look at the price, you know, but they don't even, they go to restaurants where they just give them this beautiful menu and there's, you know, not even prices on there, because it's a different world. You know, it's a world where you can do anything. Again, like Lauren Hill said, if you've got huge amounts of money, your justice doesn't apply to you. Normal rules don't apply. You know, you want to have sex parties, you want to have any amounts of posh people's drugs. You want to, you know, you can do anything. You know, you would never go to prison. You'd never get fined for speeding or
sectioned.
You never get sectioned. Nothing ever applies to you. You know, there's nothing you cannot have, and that includes the justice system. So to have multiples of that is absurd, and I can't understand how anyone could call themselves a Christian or a Muslim or a Jew and have that much money for themselves. It's beyond obscene. You know, I'm not a Christian or Muslim or Jew, but you know, I've seen the writings of, you know, the New Testament and Jesus and the things that are said, and the same goes for Muhammad. Tremendous stuff. Let's just say, as a Christian, how can you be staggeringly personally rich, and there's people who've got nothing or are dying? How can you allow that to be and still call yourself a good person? That's, I mean, what do they say about money? You know, what does Jesus say about money, and how much worth would God give to money? And yet we spend most of our lives trying to accumulate it, and the ones that have got loads of it and could give away, you know, the pleasure of money is being able to give it away, being able to do something with it. So to hoard that, well, that's all mine, and I want to just go this massive business empire or whatever empire. That's not Christian, and that applies to all the others as well. But I just say it as for shorthand. That's loving money. That's having another god. You know, it says in the Ten Commandments, have no god other than me. You might think, oh, well, that's a bit mean and stuff, but what it means is, you know, for many people, money is God.
Does it also say thou shalt not be greedy?
Something like that, yeah. You know, and Jesus got really upset, mega upset at the moneylenders. You know, get out of my house. It's you know, beyond an abomination, making money off, making interest off money, usury. You know, it says it throughout the Bible and throughout the Quran, and you know, don't do it. It's terrible. It's evil. So our obsession with it, our love of it, is deeply unchristian.
It's disturbing.
It's disturbing, yeah. We can't just keep barreling along and changing bits incrementally. We've got to have a massive change, and we're in a perfect position to come out of this pandemic the stronger. And by being stronger, what I mean is we take over. Not in a violent revolution, but people get together, because there's an awful lot more of us than there are of them, including the police and the army and everything. You know, in Britain we have got some sort of democracy, so they can't just kill civilians and get away with it. We've got to come together, people, and realise that all these special interest groups we've got, you know, if it's the long-eared bat society, or the tree growers society, or the farmers union, or anything, they're all connected, and we all want the basic same thing, which is an end to our tyrannical and useless government. It's not as though they're brilliant and things are doing great. I mean, we've got, sorry to get on my high horse here a bit, but we've got the most amazing godlike technology. We've got wisdom throughout the ages. Confucius, Lao Tse, Plato, Socrates, yeah, you know, and you know, Bob Marley and Martin Luther King. We've got all this knowledge and all this amazing abilities to do stuff. You know, 3D printing, everything is just going to. We've got astonishing technology, but we're doing incredibly badly. We're fighting wars all over the world. People are dying from having too much food, and there's still people dying from having no food. And loads of people have got nothing to do, and some people have got far too much to do. Why are we just doing the same old crap, the same old shit, time and again, and thinking, well, it'll somehow get better? Well, if you look at where we've got to now, the criminal incompetence have made it as bad as it is. So expecting those same criminal incompetence to get us out of this trouble, and it'll be a lovely universe, and it'll be like Star Trek. So we could have a much better future. The way things are at the moment is, we have to acknowledge it, really, really bad. We can't go on with endless wars. We can't go on polluting the world with plastics and oil-based everything. We can't carry on as we are, and we have to change our politics, because it's a busted system. It was invented in the UK back in the times when only rich white men, which were landowners, they were the only ones who had any say. They were corrupt then, and they're still corrupt. They're still the same sort of people, wealthy. If you want to be a politician and go through all that university and living in central London and doing research and for nothing, you can't do that unless you've got really wealthy parents. And as an awful lot of our cabinet, and I mean, I'm including the Lib Dems and Labour and Conservative, they're all the same. They're rich white people by and large. And they have, like I say, they've got every possibility there, and it's terrible. Our food is just rubbish. We've got a massive cancer rate, which I was going to come on to this, but we've always kept good health records in the UK, and back in the 1900s and stuff, the cancer rate was something like 1 in 20, maybe even less. Now it's 1 in 2, 1 in 3, soon be 1 in 1. It's just accepted as, well, it's cancer.
It's common.
What can you do? But why has it got worse? Oh, it's because we've got better detection and better treatments. No, it hasn't. If it's gone a pro rata in the community, then something's going wrong. Something about our modern life is killing us, quite literally. So I was thinking, if your son came home and he got a black eye, you go, oh, what's the matter, son? You go, oh, it fell over in the playground. And you go, okay, well, let's put an ice pack on it. And it goes yellow eventually. But if you came back with the other eye blacked, and then every week he'd come back with some fresh injury, with bloody black eyes that'd be puffy, would you go, well, we just need to get better at spotting it? So as soon as you come up the path, oh, right, we need to get it, and you get in there and you do really good treatment, and you cauterise the wound, and you stitch it, and you do brilliant things. That would be stupid. That would be the actions of an idiot. What you need to do is, you go to school pretty early on, you go, well, wait a second, go to school and go, what's happening? Oh, well, that kid's nicking his dinner money and several other kids, and he's beating in black and blue. And you'd stop it. You wouldn't just go on, and not notice that things are getting worse. Why are things getting worse? And it's because pollution. There's many strands to it, but pollution, terrible food, an awful diet. The Western diet is shit. I mean, how many people eat fast food? Takeaways, always eating out,
now and again.
Just warming stuff up in the oven. And it's shit for us, it's not good. They always say, well, it's part of the calorie control diet, it's a treat. But everybody eats the stuff because it's always there. And human beings, if they've got an abundance of food, like little crabs, get it down, yeah.
I do snack a lot.
Fat. So do everybody does. I eat loads of crisps and cakes and biscuits and chocolate. Ridiculous.
Yeah.
And sometimes
tea cakes and Jaffa cakes.
Tea cakes and Jaffa cakes, yeah. Yeah. Here's my shopping list for the next week, Yeah, but thought this, just being able to have a bath, having hot water, having all these things, I'm so lucky compared to almost everybody in history throughout the world to have the ability to, get paid a pension from the NHS. What? Most countries this is undreamed of. A national health system that's free. We've got so much in this country, and we think that because it seems superficially good. I mean, you can drive down the road and there's a bit of Jaguar on the drive.
I was just thinking the other day, don't you think it's strange how you have people constantly testing for Legionella in the water supply, when it's the water supply is the very thing that established us from developing countries?
Yeah. I mean, a water supply. Just got some water out of your tap.
But we have someone come in once a week.
Yeah.
Look at your water, check your temperatures, check. You know what I mean?
Really?
So the difference between that
Wow.
and, as you say, people that are starving.
Yeah, the slums and stuff, where they have open sewage and kids wading in shit, they do. And I've been to India and there's people just crapping in the middle of an island, feral dogs everywhere. It's an absolute mess. In Mumbai, funnily enough, there was great documentaries about it. The people are generally far happier than we are in the West, because they have communal cooking. Everybody gets together, and
so the poorest people have the wealthiest.
Some of the poorest people in the world
have the wealthiest morals.
and they have great. It's safe on their streets and stuff. So there's, if you gave people a chance so that they could have, a proper sewage system, sewage treatment, you could make their lives so much better, and they would have less children if they knew that they were going to survive. If you want population reduction, make people feel more secure. They don't want a fridge and a jacuzzi and a foreign holidays. They want enough to eat for them and their kids.
Did you see, do you know Akon, the rapper?
Yes, Aaron told me about him.
He has provided electricity for, I'm not sure, I can't remember which part of Africa, but he's provided solar electricity.
Has he?
Yeah.
Well done, him.
Like, he's provided for millions.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, our foreign aid is such a joke. It's like, because they say, well, it's in a 0.25% of GDP or something like, really small. And there's always people saying, oh, we shouldn't be looking for those people over there, charity begins at home. But a lot of stuff that we're giving them is out-of-date medicines, breast implants, all sorts of stuff. And basically it's a dumping ground for lots of our things, and you just say, we're giving it to charity. But I think it's one of the nations that had to build an incinerator just to throw away all this shit for the some good stuff that they get, they get antiretrovirals and things. But our foreign aid is often, tanks and guns and stuff that benefits us. We give them all of our clothes, and we feel good about it. But the local clothes makers go out of business because they can't compete with free. And it's Western, so it must be great. So we have an illusion. It was like you were playing earlier, Lauryn Hill. The stuff that she was saying in that rap, amazing. And Erin introduced me to Akala, Fire in the Booth, part 1 and 4 particularly. Just say, what part 1 says everything, and luckily lots of people are listening to people like him and to Lauryn Hill and others, because there's loads of us who are saying stuff. We can see it, that this is rubbish. Like Lauryn Hill, you don't get justice in America. All this, Americans saying, oh, we've got freedom, we're home of the brave and stuff. They haven't got freedom. If you looked at the number of people who can smash your door down and drag you or your kids away, you'll find 50 different agencies in America that can do that. They can lock you up, they can have extraordinary rendition, they can torture you, they can treat you as a slave, like I was saying, in their prison system. In their constitution it says no slavery, apart from, of course, if it's in prison. We've got modern day slavery, we've still got it. But because we've got multi-billionaires, which is just an obscenity, we think, oh, life's good. I can go on 2 foreign holidays a year, life's great. I've got, marble countertops and a big extension and a Jaguar on the drive, life's brilliant. Is it? I don't think it is. Because, if you're wealthy, obviously you're insulated to a certain extent, but ordinary people, we've got an NHS system which is failing, not because of COVID, but because all the governments, and particularly the Conservatives, have run it down over the last decades. That's why there's no bed space, because they've got rid of something like 30,000 beds. They haven't trained enough nurses, and they make them pay for this, that and the other. It's a racket, and it needs to stop, which is why I've joined Extinction Rebellion, because they want to put democracy in. So rather than a bunch of bloody wealthy people who are deciding, because if you're super wealthy, you'll relate to other people who are super wealthy. And if, we think we have one man, one vote in the UK, no, we don't. If you own a series of newspapers, media and stuff, you have millions, perhaps even, no, not billions of votes, millions of votes. It's like if you're a trade union leader, you'll have a certain amount of votes as well. But the ones for the common man are going down because union membership's going down. But, if you're really wealthy, like Bill Gates, you make policy. People listen to you, they do what you say. And if you're extremely wealthy like Bill Gates, might seem like I'm picking on him, but yeah, I am picking on him. He sets up these charities and things, but does research and blah, 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 and everyone thinks he's great. But he can do that and it won't affect his standard of living one tiny iota. In fact, he makes more money. In America, the top billionaires have made a huge amount, trillions, whilst ordinary people are going down and having their houses repossessed and stuff and being made redundant. The multi-billionaires are making more money. Surely we've got to see at some point, right, this has gone far enough, it's just utterly ridiculous. So that's what I'd like to do. That's what my mission in life is, to try and get as many people as possible to go, yes, let's stop this madness for our kids and our grandkids and, heaven knows, great-grandkids. Because I don't want my grandkids to grow up in the Wild West where the man with the gun makes the rules. I don't want him to grow up in a place ruined by pollution, ruined by, because we've taken every resource out, ruined by endless plastic that doesn't rot down, in seas that you can't take the fish from because they're so polluted. Mm-hmm. I don't want that. I want my grandkids to grow up in a better world than I had. And I had, from 1963, I had it very good, really, middle class family, all the reasonable education, the abilities to work. I had it all, but the world wasn't nearly as despoiled as it is now. Now, in the prison system, if you have a lockdown, that's right, emergency, lock everything down, people in their cells, all normal stuff goes out the window, no visiting, nothing, you just lock down. And that's the situation we're in. And for over a year now, we've been locked away, locked down, where we are the prisoners in our own homes. It's like being under curfew. You can only see these people, and under that circumstances, and go here and go there, but you can't do everything. So we've lost our freedom of association, freedom of movement. And if you try to criticise, you say something that they don't agree with, you can get locked up, you can get fined. You can't just open your business, you'll get fined. We're going into a really bad situation because without noticing it, we've become like a totalitarian state, and we all think, oh, it'll just be temporary. But will it? Or will they keep all of those emergency laws that they've made on the statute books, like after they did after 9/11 and the Patriot Act? You go, I don't think they're going to give up their control, and I think they can herd us around, let us in, let us out, let us in, let us out. Let's stay in, go out, stay in, go out. It could keep going on. Our kids, normal kids, are the ones who are having problems. If you're super rich, you'll have nannies, you'll have teachers, you'll have all sorts of stuff. But ordinary people are suffering. So I think lockdown will cause more casualties to society than COVID. Because COVID, like others, is a winter flu. It's a very harsh one. I've had it myself, it's not very nice. My mom's had it. As I was saying earlier, I thought she was going to die. I was terribly upset. It's dangerous, yes. People die. People have always died at winter, particularly the low-hanging fruit, like my mum. It's, any sure thing that you'll have in nature is that you'll die. We're born, so we die. And I think there'll be far more trouble, far more deaths, which will actually come about because of these draconian rules. And I don't like being ordered around. I don't like being ordered who I can see, who I can hug. So I will hug my mom, as I do. Well, she's had it anyway, she's had the jab. But it's a curtailment of our freedom. And just like America, we only have an illusion of freedom, not freedom itself. Lauryn Hill said it brilliantly. When the law is written against you and justice is against you, and in America the police are endemically racist. I think I said it in another podcast, but they came originally from the slave catchers, and they became the deputies and the sheriffs, who were quite often their local clan leaders.
KKK.
The KKK. They were the ones who were stringing up black men. Low-hanging... Oh, no, what was it? What was that? Singer. Strange Fruit. Strange Fruit. Do you know it? Well,
I can't think of the singer.
Yeah, it'll come to you, but she was banned off the airways for some time.
Nina Simone.
Yes. Yeah, I think it was. Yeah. But Low-Hanging Fruit was about, hanging black men from trees. Mm-hmm. Which wasn't Strange Fruit, yeah. But the authorities clamped down on her. So free speech, no. It only depends what you say. It's and I think a lot of Americans are waking up to the fact that their government has got far too big for its britches, and not just the government that you see. Like George W. Bush. It was his dad, and Dick Cheney. They told him what to do. He made the tea. He was an idiot. So Americans, you've got a corrupt system. I'm sure you know it by now. So stop voting for the usual criminals and go for the third way, which is another video I was watching. A third party which might have voted Bernie Sanders, but he looks like he's chickened out. But a third way, other places like in the UK, vote for the Greens. And that would make a real change. So that's what I'd love to go around, talk to people, vote Green, because I think within the next one or possibly two election cycles, they could form a big part of the government, and eventually the government, and we'd actually get some people who've ever had normal jobs and are normal people, who will do the best for people and planet, because they're indistinguishable. We've only got the one planet, as many people have said, so it makes sense to look after it. Mm-hmm. If I was to give you a Fabergé egg, beautifully made with incredible, just the most staggering, beautiful present, and I gave it to you, and then you kicked it on the floor and stabbed pins into it and put ink on it, I think, oh my God, that's very disrespectful. You've disrespected this beautiful planet that I've given you. Sorry, this beautiful gift that I've given you. So you look after it. We fill the oceans full of plastic and oil. We put oil over our roads, which are useless and pathetic. We smear it all over our faces. We have terrible health. We're all on a diet, a cocktail of pills. Life is not good.
Bash the fuck out of the ozone layer.
Yeah, exactly. We do all these things. Surely, at some point, we must realise that the ones that got us into the mess are not the ones to get us out of it. Change. Do something different. If what you do doesn't work, then to carry on doing it is that a madness? Einstein said something like that. So change seems to be what we need. And I think Klaus Schwab, who sounds like some evil doctor, his idea, and those of the elites, like, the ones that meet up at Bohemian Grove and other, denizens of these rich white people, the RWMs, why would you ask the foxes to build a better hen house? They're never going to do it. We will never get a system that's good for us. We will just have a controlled system like they have in China, facial recognition on every street corner, and people hunted down, and it would be horrible. We don't want that. We don't have it at the moment, or we have it temporarily, let's not make it a permanent fixture. Let's do something about it while we still can, because if we wait, things will get worse and worse. And that's not, I don't think that's me being unreasonable. As I said last week, with authority, we are taught to obey them, and we always think that whatever system we have is the one that should be there. We do it with religions and politics and all sorts. But it isn't the best system. So let's have a much better system. And the two-party system isn't it. So if you have been listening, thank you very much. And if you haven't been listening, you idiots. Good night. Budah out.